What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a little bit of a departure from the weekly Teach series. I'm going to be doing another book review. The first one I did of Deliberate Practice was very popular, and I've just wrapped up another book which I'm dying to share with you. This book is interesting because it profiles businesses, but I found it so applicable to life, to creating training, to creating online courses, to pretty much anything. And I distilled it down into 9 takeaways, which I shared in my newsletter and I put out on Twitter. And the craziest thing happened. The author got back to me. He was so impressed with what I'd shared, we started exchanging some emails, and I'm going to be recording him on my podcast. That episode may already be out already, and if it is, we'll update the link in the description below so you can have a listen there. But today, I'm going to share with you those 9 takeaways so that you can see what resonates with you and apply it to your life. I'm Andrew Barry. I teach people how to teach on the internet, and today I'm going to be doing a book review of Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. Let's get into it. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of classic signposting here to let you know what the 9 takeaways are, so you know where we are. So first of all, make people feel like they're on your side. Secondly, get good at saying no. Thirdly, create a common language. 4, create a culture of intimacy. 5, build community. 6, pay attention to gross margin. 7, maintain focus. 8, estate tax. And 9, Mojo. Okay, so make people feel like you're on their side. I'm working with a client now, Khalid Halim, who is an exceptional coach of CEOs of venture-backed companies. He's working on a course now that teaches the people on the teams of those companies how to get along with each other and boost efficiency and performance through better communication. And one of the key central pillars of his whole course is this idea of rapport. Everything, when you think about it, comes down to having a good relationship with the person that you're talking to, or working with, or partnering with, or whatever the case may be. Danny Meyer, who started Union Square Hospitality Group, some of the best restaurants in New York City, and eventually Shake Shack, the publicly listed burger chain, describes this as having an intense, nearly neurotic interest in seeing people have a good time. A good friend of mine as well, Marie Poulin, putting out some amazing YouTube videos here too, talks about being a day maker. If you go into life, and I've definitely seen the benefit of this, if you go into life thinking every day that you want to make someone else's day, you create this incredible bank or reservoir of rapport. And it's that rapport which is going to help you get things done. So this first takeaway of making people feel like you're on their side helps you make so much progress in whatever it is you're trying to do. All right, the second one, which is something I need to remind myself of constantly, is to get good at saying no. So in the book, Bo profiles these companies, some of which grew too big too quickly. And in it, he draws this conclusion that by the time your business or your project or whatever it is you're working on has grown too big, it's almost too late to realize you're out of your depth. So having very clear boundaries and saying no to things can help you sort of focus, which is one of the later points we'll cover, on what you're uniquely good at. And that's one of the keys to success in anything that you're working on. So my third takeaway is to create a common language. In my last video, I talked about the 3 P's of TOCs. So for those of you who didn't catch that, TOCs are transformational online courses, and the 3 P's are personal meaning, peer-to-peer learning, and prompts to action. That's a lot to sort of keep in your brain at any given time. And having a sort of a name to it, the 3 P's of TOCs, I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've now heard people use TOC out in the wild, or start to associate the word transformational when thinking about online courses with me. And it's amazing. It gives people something in their mind to associate you with. And I think this is applicable in anything that you do in life as well. Certainly building a business. If you're working in a company or building your own business, creating a common language that is unique to the people in that company is a great way to bond over things, almost have inside jokes and inside language that brings people together and keeps them working towards a common goal. And related to that is creating this culture of intimacy, which is my fourth takeaway. The true small giants in this book have an amazing internal company culture, which despite many of them becoming very, very big companies, stayed with them throughout. And what Bo realized while profiling and researching these companies was that the ones that were very successful at this were imbuing their whole company with a sense of higher purpose. And they made that a constant presence. One of the great ways to do this in a business is if you're the boss or the manager, is remind people that work for you in unexpected ways how much they're cared for. At the end of the day, we all want to be seen and heard and recognized for who we are. And these companies made a point of that, having a shared purpose that they were working towards and making sure that everyone was seen, felt, and heard in unexpected ways, which I think is the key. Because it's not just a tagline or a company perk, it's a genuine caring for the individual behind that employee number. I think you can definitely apply this to anything in your life. It's about trust and mutual respect. And at the end of the day, to get anything done, you need other people. So why not treat them with that level of respect? So my fifth takeaway here was this idea of building community. And in researching all these various companies, Bo boils it down to three things that are the three pillars of community. Those are integrity, professionalism, and direct human connection. Integrity is derived from the word integer, which means one. Having integrity means being at one with yourself, the same inside as you are outside. This idea of ultimate truth and being truthful is so fundamental in my life. This just really resonated with me, and it was so clear why those companies were so successful with this core pillar in place. Even in a company or a project you're working on, there's a sense of wanting to move forward and having a certain professionalism around doing that. It allows you also, I think, to have a bit of fun. If you check out my core values video, you know playfulness is a big part of it for me, but you can't really have playfulness and have fun in a business setting or in a project that you're working on or something you're creating without having professionalism. And finally, we talked about this a lot already in these takeaways, that direct human connection is what underpins all of this. I've been thinking about this a lot in building the community for On Deck course creators, and I'm going to be using those three pillars as important pillars in that community. All right, number 6 is pay attention to the gross margin. Now, this is an accounting term which basically means the profit after the costs that you have to sell the thing that you're selling. It's a lot more than that though, which I found pretty interesting. In the book, applied to these businesses, it's the concept of not focusing on sales growth. So in other words, just growing to try and capture market share and generate volume, but focusing on the margin, focusing on the efficiency with how you're generating those sales. And I think this concept is applicable to so many parts of life. It pays to focus on doing more with less. At the end of the day, you're going to burn out if all you want to do is just get to the next sale, to generate and grow as big as you can. And if you're not taking care of how you're doing that, it's going to catch up to you. So remember, in business and in life, guard against going for volume and focus instead on profitability. So my 7th takeaway is about focusing in general. And I'm going to quote from the book here. There was one of the founders that Bo interviewed that just summed it up perfectly, this idea of focus. So he said that running a company, and I think this is totally applicable to running your life, it's like sailing down a river with many tributaries running off. Yes, you pause to consider each tributary and whether it's part of your voyage, but keeping you on course is the knowledge of where you want to be at the end of the trip. That's a really powerful metaphor for life in general, and certainly running a business or working on a project. It's so important to not get distracted and go off course because of some shiny object or something that takes your fancy, And it comes back to one of the earlier takeaways, having that sense of higher purpose imbued in the project or the business that you're building. Super, super important, keeping you on that right track, making sure that you don't lose sight of that goal. All right, number 8 is a sobering one, but I think an important one to hear, and it's the concept of estate tax. Felt a little out of place in the book, but the more I thought about it, it was actually so important. I had to include it in these 9 takeaways. The basic premise here is that no matter how big your company or current project is, get counsel and an estate plan as quickly as you can. Everyone knows of stories of people whose lives were tragically cut short, and thinking about that and thinking about death can be quite uncomfortable. But it's also super important to remember that any day could be your last day. And there's a positive spin to this, right? Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great and a number of other great books, one of which I will be reviewing on this channel shortly, talks about this prompt that he gives himself, which is to say, if I only had 10 years left to live, what would I stop doing now? It's a really, really powerful framing of prioritizing, right? Of thinking about what is important to you. So I think the idea of estate tax has definitely got to be one of those things that you need to have in place. And once it's in place, it's in place. You can rest a little bit easier and really focus on enjoying the present. Finally, the 9th takeaway is Mojo. This was my favorite. This is about vibe. This is about a feeling that comes across in a business, a project, something you're creating, even just in your family life. What does that feel like to people? That vibe comes from the person or people leading that business or project or family. And I'm going to go back to Bo's brilliant phrasing here, which I think is such a good way to look at how to think about creating a vibe for your company. In the book, he talks about having a clear idea of what life has to offer at its best in terms of exciting challenges, camaraderie, passion, hope, intimacy, community, a sense of purpose, feelings of accomplishment, and then ensuring that the people that you work with and the people around you can get this regularly. It goes back to being a day maker. It goes back to treating people with the utmost sense of respect and having that neurotic interest in seeing people have a good time. At the end of the book, Bo reminds us that relationships are fragile. They depend on a level of intimacy and trust that's easily lost. And I think having that in mind makes you a better person already, because then you're focusing on the things that we mentioned in these 9 takeaways, which really help create that sense of community, that common language, that intimacy for you and for those around you. So I highly recommend checking out this book. It's full of great advice. It's not what it seems. It's not just a profile of great businesses who've done amazing things while still growing. It goes a lot deeper than that. So I encourage you to check it out. Really let the stories soak into you and let me know what your takeaways are. I'll see you next week.